Final girls have been known to exist ever since the 1970s, killing the unbeatable beast through the chaos and terror that was placed upon her while just trying to enjoy life. A quote from horror.fandom.com says, according to Clover, Carol J. Clover, the final girl is typically sexually unavailable or virginal, avoiding the vices of the victims. She sometimes has a unisex name. Occasionally, the final girl will have a shared history with the killer. The final girl is the investigating consciousness of the film, moving the narrative forward, and as such, she exhibits intelligence, curiosity, and vigilance. Now, there are more characteristics considered to be associated with the final girl, especially after searching Google, but their realization led me to the question that I have for myself. If the final girl trope is so broad, then why does it exist at all? Associate with the final girl trope is that she doesn't have sex, smoke, drink, etc., and she's a symbol of virtue and morality. Laurie Strode is given as an example many times for having these characteristics until you watch the film and see that she indulges in the car with her friend Annie. Now you can say that once she did that made her a target, but Michael Myers targeted her before we even really got to meet the character. Honestly, straight from memory, I believe Sally from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1974 fits that list more than Laurie, aside from being mean to her brother Franklin. To be honest, Nancy didn't do anything that would be considered impure, in quotations, and Freddie was targeting her before she even talked to her friends, so you can attribute that to having a shared history with the killer, so she does check the box. What if Nancy had not gone to the sleepover and helped fuel the fear of Freddie? What if Laurie saw that creepy house and asked her dad to drop off the key? What if Sally decided not to stay in the middle of a deserted Texas town and went on about her business? Vigilance would have definitely come in handy, right? Vigilance was listed as a characteristic for a final girl, yet none of the final girls I mentioned previously had that when it came to their films. Not when Michael was following Laurie, not when Sally picked up that hitchhiker, and not when Nancy heard all of her friends dreaming of the exact same person and how disturbed her friend was about it. So much so that she asked them to come over. None of these characters were really paying attention to their surroundings, but who could blame them? They were just living their life. You could also say that the time that these films took place also contributed to their vigilance as well. The 70s was a time of picking up strangers and trusting society with peace and love. In the 80s, I'm pretty sure no one can fathom a serial killer from their nightmares killing them in the real world, which is probably one of the reasons why A Nightmare on Elm Street was so popular. My point in saying these things is that they all had the same level of knowledge as their counterparts during their events. You could say that the vigilance took place while they were fighting the villain of the film, but to me that just means they had good survival instincts. You could even say vigilance is a part of survival instincts, but it actually has nothing to do with survival instincts. From collinsdictionary.com, survival instinct is the instinct in humans and animals to do things in a dangerous situation that will prevent them from dying. Self-preservation. A trait that these final girls all exhibit, including Maxine Minx. Maxine Minx is a character from the most recently released horror film called Maxine. Heavy spoilers after this, including the ending to the two films X and Maxine. So if you want to skip this part, check out the timestamp below. After her previous experience with almost being taken out by an older couple at a farmhouse, she decides to take her talent to Hollywood in the hopes of making it big. During her time there, her past catches up with her, and now she has to find a way to get rid of it before it ruins her opportunity at a great film role to change her career. The reason why I decided to choose Maxine for this is because she is a soul survivor like the previous final girls I mentioned, and some people view her as the unconventional final girl, turning the trope on its head by indulging in everything that a final girl wouldn't and doing the exact opposite of what a final girl would do. She smokes, she drinks, she has sex, she takes drugs, she's selfish. I really like these choices made with this character, and that actually leads me to my next point. What is the difference between Sally, Laurie, Nancy, and Maxine when it comes to being final girls? In my opinion, absolutely nothing. Every single one of them are different in every way, and oddly enough, that's what I feel like makes them the same, if it makes sense. They don't check all the boxes when it comes to being a final girl, nor do they check all the boxes when it comes to being the opposite. Nancy and Maxine can be selfish, while Sally and Laurie don't really have the vigilance when it comes to understanding their surroundings. Now I know you're like, how was Nancy and Maxine selfish? Well, Nancy got angry at her boyfriend for not staying awake, even though it was pretty obvious early on that they were all being hunted in their nightmares by Freddy Krueger. So he was probably tired out of his mind, yet she expected him to be 100%. Maxine literally said in the film that maybe the next girl should save herself like she did. Sally should have known that her friends leaving for a whole day was out of character and called the police instead of going and searching herself. Regardless if it wasn't that big of a deal, her and Franklin could have really been hurt, which, spoiler alert, they were. Laurie shouldn't have dropped her weapon so many times while making many attempts to escape Michael Myers' grasp. These things are completely okay in my opinion because it shows that these characters are capable of being human, and that makes it scarier for me because I don't know their next move, just like I don't know the slasher's next move. There's no shame in the action of these final girls. Nancy and Maxine were most likely reacting based off their trauma. Laurie and Sally were literally living in the era where most people even still to this day recognize it as an era of a more trusting society. The action of these final girls show them as imperfect humans just trying to navigate a scary, tragic situation while being able to bounce back from their mistakes and different obstacles with pure survival instincts. They may be different in terms of life experience, personality, look, etc., but the one thing they all have in common is survival instinct. And maybe I'm thinking the new definition for the final girl should simply be a woman who is able to survive the horror film slasher against all odds, and the trait should simply be survival instincts, because even the final girls listed under the final girl trope don't make the list. Also, having that definition gives the opportunity to invite other female lead characters like Jess Bradford from Black Christmas 1974 into the mix. From slashers in the 1970s to Maxine, they all do have one thing in common: using the knowledge and abilities they have to survive. Some may not be physically strong and have MMA skills. Some may not always know what to do, but they find a way to survive and make it out. I'm definitely not the first to have this opinion, and this was not a dig at anyone for having their own specific feelings towards slashers and final girls. Trust me, being a slasher fan myself since I was a kid, I definitely know the major flaws of slasher films. It was just really cool for me to see growing up and now that these final girls did everything to survive and bring as many people with them, even though most of the time that didn't work out either. To see them beat the big bad while making mistakes or not knowing what to do, or while using what they had and what they knew, was really cool to see. To me, it makes final girls one of the best types of heroines. With everything we know now, I can't wait to see the future slashers to come and how new final girls are formed. Let me know what you think, and thank you so much for watching. Peace.